Michelle Marie McGrath.
Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Unclassified Woman. It's a bit of a long one today, but I hope you'll enjoy it. We had quite a giggle. And today I'm talking to the lovely Susannah Conway. Susannah is a writer, photographer, and teacher who's been sharing her heart online for over a decade, dedicated to helping people know, trust, and express themselves better. Her work is steeped in self-compassion, kindness, and practicality. Susannah's creative courses have been enjoyed by thousands of people from over 50 countries around the world. And her first book, This I Know, Notes on Unraveling the Heart, hit bookshelves in 2012. Her most recent London Town, a photographic tour of the city's delights, was published in 2016. Now, I can personally highly recommend Susannah's courses. I've done a few of them. The first one that I did was, several years ago now, and it was her Blogging from the Heart course, which I really loved, where she shares so much behind the scenes of how she puts together her blog, ideas for blog topics and writing, and, it really inspired me. And something that is, has been spread virally of hers that she creates, that I've also shared with lots of friends and clients over the years, is this amazing free PDF that she shares at the end of every year, and it's Unraveling the Year Ahead, where you reflect on the year gone by and then really contemplate what you want to create in the following year. So I highly recommend you check those out if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoy our conversation today. Let's get into it. So, hi, Susannah. Great to have you here today. Been dying to talk to you about all this for ages.
I think it's been years, hasn't it?
I know. Well, I think we did first mention it, didn't we, a couple of years ago? And now it's the perfect timing. So, just to give us some context, will you share a little bit about your background and whether you've not had a child due to personal choice or whether it's been more circumstantial?
Yeah, it's definitely been circumstantial. So I am 45 right now, as of recording in 2018. I have been in 3 serious relationships, and my longest one was 10 years. And we did try and have a baby, or try to conceive, for a year, and that never happened. And we could probably talk about that. But since then, I've been on my own and not in a serious relationship for the last 13 years. So I've always been slightly ambivalent about having kids, to be honest. When I was growing up, I didn't think that I would definitely be a mum, but it was that kind of expected, well, probably I will be, but I wasn't dressing up dollies or have any of that going on. As I hit my teens and into my 20s, I didn't really think about being a mum.
Yeah.
But when I got into my long-term relationship, when we started trying to conceive was actually at the end of the relationship. And I think we were doing that classic, well, this is the next step. And I think we were running out of steam. So we thought, well, this is obviously what we should do then. We should have a baby. And luckily I didn't fall pregnant, so that didn't happen. And we broke up, and he went on to meet someone and have 2 kids. So that was definitely his path. But it wasn't my path, because I then got into another relationship, and then went through bereavement. And from there, I've kind of been in quite a serious relationship with myself. So kids just haven't happened. And I did have a period around the age of 40 where I thought, well, this is crunch time. Do I want children? And I wasn't sure. And this is probably around the time you and I were speaking, because I couldn't record an interview with any kind of definitive, I definitely don't want them, or I just wasn't sure. And it was such an emotional topic for me. I've had fibroids in my body for quite a long time. And how old was I when I had that done? I think I was about 41, 42 when I had them removed. I had a pound of fibroids removed from my uterus and surrounding areas. So quite a big, heavy operation. Took me quite a while to recover from. And I remember when I came out from the anaesthetic and I'm lying in bed recovering, and the doctor comes in and he's like, well, if you want to have kids, you want to get on that right now because, time is of the essence.
Talk about picking your moments.
I know. I was a bit delusional in that moment, a bit delirious rather. My sister had to say to him, look, she's not here for that. She's single. She's not here to try and have children. She's here because she was in pain. That's why she had them removed. But it was quite an unthinking thing. But then obviously I understand that for a lot of women, they're going to have any kind of gynecological surgery because their fertility is of the essence.
Absolutely. And I think, look, one of the things that you mention around being uncertain and unsure, I think that's a lot more common than we realise, but often women don't voice it so much aloud because the way that we're conditioned, if it's not a natural urge for you, we're almost taught that, well, there must be something wrong with you if you don't feel that particularly strongly, because that's what normal and natural, women feel, that it's natural to want that and have that urge, whereas so many women don't have that very clear, definitive yearning. I think there's just so many factors involved, aren't there?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a timeline that we're all supposed to follow. Yes. And I put that in quotes. You go to school, you do your exams, you hopefully go to college or university, you meet someone, you fall in love and you get married, you buy a house, you have a baby, you bring them up, they do a bit of empty nesting, you retire and then you die. I mean, that's the timeline we're all supposed to follow. So anyone who deviates from that because maybe they're not heterosexual, maybe they don't want to have kids, all of these things that actually we don't want to have to stick to what we're supposed to do, then it becomes a problem because there's not always an example for you to follow. So as a girl, I had my periods. I got my periods when I was 11. And so you're very aware that, well, this is all about, babies.
Yes.
And my sex education at school was nothing. We had no sex education. I learned about fallopian tubes and that was about it. No one taught me jack. I remember my mum showing me a sanitary towel because when I started my periods, she'd already had a hysterectomy. So I had no experience of my mum having periods.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of learn it on my own. She showed me a sanitary towel. That was kind of it. We didn't talk about it. I mean, we talked about it a bit, but not a lot. And obviously I found it very embarrassing. And it was the 80s. So, there wasn't a lot of communicating going on back then.
There really wasn't. And do you remember? I remember my mum showing me a Tampax box, and you could write away to Tampax and they would send you a free leaflet about periods and how to insert a Tampax. And I remember sending off for this and thinking, what is this? Like, I have to, what? This goes inside you? That just, no, that doesn't seem right. That's weird. And then I remember looking at sanitary towels and thinking, well, this big, thick, bulky thing in my pants, like that's going to be, so just the whole thing seems so bizarre.
Well, back then, sanitary towels just look like little mini mattresses for your pants. I'm like, what am I going to do? Where in that? I mean, I think my mum you had to put a little, oh God, I can't think what the word is. It wasn't like a stick-on towel. It had a contraption you had to put it in.
It was like a belt. Do you remember?
Yeah,
There's ones where it had two loops and it was like a belt. And I remember trying this on thinking, this is like just weird. It can't have been a woman who came up with these designs, surely.
Oh, it was just, it was ridiculous. I mean, I remember my mum never showed me a tampon. Because she wasn't having periods. So we didn't have the stuff in the house. I didn't see the stuff in the bathroom. I was the eldest child, eldest of two girls. So, I was the first one to get her. I think I was about 11. But I remember the first time I tried to put in a tampon, God knows where I got it from. And I think I was at school when I tried in the school toilets. And I couldn't get it in properly because I was trying to put it up when you're supposed to do it a little bit more slanted. Anyway, I couldn't figure it out. And it hurt. And I'm like, well, I'm doing this wrong. So I'm not doing this. So it was sanitary towels all the way. And actually, I still only use sanitary towels because I think with the fibroids, it was actually so uncomfortable to wear tampons. So yeah, it's sanitary towels all the way.
Yeah, it was the same for me, really. I tried them sort of briefly, tampons, but I found them uncomfortable and I
Yeah,
just didn't like the idea of having something stuck inside me all day because I would think it's counterintuitive. The blood's
yeah,
trying to flow out and then that is kind of holding it in. So I could never really get my head around the logic of that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just the joys of being a woman. I mean, now I know, I've got friends who free bleed and of course treat it much more as a sacred act of creation and a creative cycle, which of course it is. But at that point, you don't learn that kind of thing at school.
God, and I wish we did.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wish we did because it would have made such a difference. It was back then, and I'm sure girls probably feel it now because it's all hush hush.
Yes.
Even though half the planet has to go through this,
Yeah.
this hush hush thing, it's dirty, it's wrong,
The
it's smelly,
secrecy. Yeah.
it's nasty. And then of course you get the adverts where they're wearing their white jeans and rolling around on their rollerblades, and it's like that's not my experience of it.
No.
Actually, it's really painful. And my blood, there was either a lot of it or not enough of it. I never bled enough to wear tampons anyway. I still don't. I have like one day of hardcore bleeding and then it sort of dribbles off. But my blood is really clotty. Again, I think because of the fibroids, and also I probably have endometriosis. We've never looked for that, but it's in my family. So there's no sacred blood for me. It's just like this clotty mess. And yet, because I'm 45, because I know I'm heading towards perimenopause at some point.
Yeah.
I love my period. I love my menstrual cycle. I love that I still have it. I appreciate the hormones. And I've always had the worst PMS possible. But over the last kind of decade of really connecting with myself, healing all my stuff, part of it has been understanding my cycle and understanding where I'm at in my cycle, like tracking the days. And it just helps so much to know that, okay, the next few days I'm going to feel a bit shitty. I'm just not going to book too much in and I'm just going to take it really gently. And I'm going to know that if on day 27 I'm losing my mind, I know why. And it's not because of everything's going wrong. It's because, actually, I'm about to start my period. And this is my day of just wrapping myself in a blanket and going really gently. And the joys of being self-employed means I can do that.
Yes, thank goodness.
So I just honor my cycle. And that's why I've been trying to learn as much about perimenopause and menopause as I can, because I'm like, okay, if it's going to be like 5 years of PMS, I better be prepared.
Well, I mean, I think,
power.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, actually. I don't know if this is going off topic or not, but I suppose it's not because it's all part of being a woman. But I've been really exploring how I feel that the triple goddess symbology, the Maiden, Mother Crone, is really limited. And I've never resonated with it because I feel as though it just restricts us to a biological function, basically. And I've actually looked into it very recently because I've thought I just don't relate to this. Because one, it just seems to be about when you're a virgin before you've had sex, then okay, you're of a reproductive age. Now you're just crone, a word I've never liked because it just means that now you're dried up and you can't have a child. So I feel like it's this kind of very minimal kind of explanation, whereas each woman's life is so varied that I feel that it's a very outdated model. And when I started to do some research about it, I found that, hello, surprise, surprise, it's actually a man's conception, Robert Graves in the 1800s. So I thought, oh, okay, right. And so I want to kind of look more into that because it just, again, that feels like it's another one of those very limiting patriarchal models that are actually quite restrictive and don't really, for me, match with, how women are such cyclical, seasonal, flowing beings just in their very nature, like, Mother Nature herself. So I feel that we're really expanding and exploring much more of what it means to be a woman today and, what is relevant a couple of 100 years ago, maybe not relevant today in certain aspects.
Well, women, we carry the magic inside us, whether or not we create babies. We carry the potential for that. We carry the magic, and we are cyclical, which does, reflect the world and the seasons and pretty much everything that's around us. So, I mean, I'm so grateful to be a woman.
Yeah.
What a result. What a what a wonderful thing. I'm so glad. I would hate to be a guy. Although I'm straight, I love men. I think they're beautiful. You know, I love the polarity between us. I
Yeah.
love what they look like and their bodies and how they complement mine. You know, all of that stuff is delicious. But I'm so glad I'm female. I'm grateful for that. And it's not dependent on whether or not I have kids or whether I'm a
Yes.
mommy. I'm a mother in so many different ways that the fact that I'm not going to actually birth another human out of my vagina doesn't take that away from me. And that feels really important because, you know, growing up, it's all about, well, you know, you're going to fall in love. I mean, I totally swallowed the Disney thing, you know, find your guy and you can live happily ever after and everything will be great. And so, of course, you know, I turned 19 and I met my guy at college. You know, it didn't look very far to find him. He was in my class. And we got together and we were together for 10 years. And you know, I assumed that would be that. And yet, even within the first few years, I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is a perfect match. But I didn't have the words to know
that. Or the experience.
You know, yeah, exactly. I was a baby. So, I mean, it makes me laugh when I see all these 20-somethings getting married because I just think, oh, well, in 15 years, I'll see you on Tinder then. Because how can you know that you're with the right person when you have such limited experience of relationships? And that's not to say they don't work out, because they do, but it just, in my experience, it totally didn't, because I just didn't know myself. So it was really hard to be in a relationship with another human being when you don't know who you are.
Totally. And your 20s are all about that, aren't they? I mean, I got married at 25 and I think, good God, like, you know, I emigrate, all these massive life decisions at such a young age. And, you know, I mean, we were together 11 years, but I think I knew, you know, 7, 8 years before the end of it, really, that we are going in different directions, because you are really getting to know who you are at that stage. It's all about exploration. You couldn't possibly know how you're going to feel about somebody in 10 years' time or 5 years or even in a year's time at that age, because so much changes.
And you hope that you'll change together.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll change together and you'll go in separate directions, because that's your personal evolution. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's so interesting, these things that had the different emphasis of these topics, like in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. Do you feel, in regards to that feeling uncertain about having a child, like you mentioned that it was only really when you hit that landmark, that age around 40, that you started to think about it? Oh, you know, because I think it's different, isn't it, when you feel like you've got lots of time and you've got the option to decide that. But when you start to feel as though, and of course we're all on a timeline with this as women, when you start to feel that, oh, okay, well, maybe this is not even a possibility for me, maybe this choice is being removed, whether it's what I want or not, I feel that's quite a different feeling.
Yeah. It's okay. How was it for me? So, because I've been single for such a long time, I've had to really consciously think about the kids thing. It's not that, oh, I'm in a relationship, we'll just do it eventually. That's how I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 29 when we started trying for a baby. I mean, one whole year of trying, like 12 cycles, didn't happen. So I've had my doubts about whether I could conceive anyway. And then we broke up and I was glad. And I carried on with my life. So yeah, around the time of 40, of course, I'm questioning it. Also because in the previous few years, my sister had my first nephew.
Yeah.
And becoming his auntie was the most amazing thing that I could that's ever happened to me. I think I can call it that, because I was so worried that I would lose my sister to motherhood, to doing a different life path to me. And actually, when Noah came along and I was there for his birth, I watched him come out. You know, I've been the most hands-on auntie you can probably be without living next door. It just changed everything. My love for him is as I imagine your love for your own child is, but I don't have that sense of responsibility for his day-to-day welfare, but if I had my own child, I imagine it would feel like that, but with that extra bit of responsibility. I mean, I love him completely. Well, I love both of them. There are two now. So when he came along, and I was lucky enough to have this close relationship, obviously with my sister, she's my best friend, and then with the baby, who's grown into the toddler, who's now 8 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, this love I feel for this little human, I love when he tells me he loves me. I will do anything for him. It goes far beyond changing a few nappies. I mean, I'm hands on. I'm right in there when we're together. I worry about him. I mean, the whole thing. It's all there. So I'm thinking, well, I should have a baby then. I should have my own. Can I replicate this with my own child? Is this what's being showed to me? That could I bring my sister her own nephew or niece? Is this part of the plan for the family kind of thing? So I started dating around that time. So I've done dating in stops and starts. But of course, when you're aware of the fact that you think, oh, maybe now's the right time you should start thinking about having a baby, and you're dating, it's just the wrongest energy you can bring. Oh my God. I mean, because blokes can smell it a mile off.
Yeah.
And you want to meet someone and you want it to move quite quickly. So you can imagine that's just a total recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Most guys correctly want to see how it goes, want to take it slow, get to know you. And you've got all these, late 30s women running around desperately wanting to get fertilized. So, I mean, it's just a disaster. So I didn't meet anyone of any importance apart from one guy, and it did move really quickly, and then he vanished. So I didn't meet my guy to have a baby with. And then as time kept moving on, the thoughts of, well, should I do this on my own? Do I want to get, do IVF or and do I want to adopt? And I'm asking myself all these questions. I'm like really sitting with them because you have to.
Yeah.
40, 41, 42, 43, you really have to ask yourself the questions. And I knew I didn't want to adopt. I wanted my own biological child from my body. That to me was how I would want to do it if I was going to do it. It's not just, I just want to be a mother, however that happens. It was like, no. I remembered the connection I felt with my nephew and the fact that I can tell we share DNA. I can feel that sort of animal connection of family. And so I understood that, well, I would want that with my child as well. So I was like, okay, I honour that. So it was going to be, well, I need to get pregnant. Do I want to do it on my own? And the thing was, I've never really been in a position where I could do that without thinking. I am self-employed. All of my income is dependent on me working. I don't feel that I quite earn enough to justify having a nanny. And I wouldn't necessarily want one full time because I'd want to bring my own child up. And, all these questions, like I really went through them. Yeah, like I really had to think about it. And this is where having a journaling practice for 30 odd years has really helped. Because I really asked myself the questions over and over again, not just one time. So I didn't want to adopt. I didn't want to do IVF and get a nanny. I'm like, well, am I going to meet the guy then, who my baby daddy? And I didn't meet him. And actually, I still haven't met him. I'm still single. So that was kind of it, really. And I think because I didn't want it enough to jump through all the different hoops, and I've always thought, well, if it was absolutely my sole path to birth a child, then surely I would have done it by now. Surely at some point in the last 10 years, either it would have happened or I would have made it happen. And neither has happened. So I'm at a place now where the kind of convenient thing about being my age is I actually find it all quite tiring now. And I think if I was still 30, I'd be like, yeah, I can have a baby. I can do it all. And now I just feel, actually, I can't. I'm quite tired. And work, I work all the time because I love it and it's absolutely what I'm here to do. But even if I go and spend the weekend with my sister and my nephews, I find it exhausting. My baby nephew, well, he's nearly 2 now. And it's just so
Full
incredibly
on.
thorough. It's really
Yeah.
full on, yeah. And it's not about, at least you can give them back. When anyone says that to me, I want to punch them, because it's like, no, I don't love being an auntie because I can give them back. I would keep them. You don't understand. I would totally keep them. The beautiful thing about being an auntie is I get all the love and the concern, and I worry about them, and me and my sister talk about stuff that's going on, and I love them like my own. And that is just such a fucking privilege, it really is. So it's not about, you can give them back. It's like, no, it's the fact that they're there, and
And
they
lovely
love me
that you've
too.
got such a close connection and relationship with them, and that I mean, how amazing to be there at the birth of a child and stuff. That's such
Oh
a
God,
special moment.
just mind blowing, actually, because and I mean, like with Noah, he had to be induced because he was a couple of weeks late, and my sister was induced in the end, and then she had an epidural, so he was kind of pulled out with some forceps, and obviously it's a little bit more dramatic. Whereas with Sammy, he was born naturally, just with gas and air, and I held her hand all the way through, literally held her hand all the way through, and it was just, amazing moment. I remember my brother-in-law was crying when the baby was born, and I'm just looking at my sister and we're just smiling. I mean, wow, what a gift to be able to experience that. And as we always say, she took one for the team, because the babies I haven't had, she had, so we get to share them. It's almost like I'm their second mummy, and I think, and I know, that's the main reason why I'm okay with not having children, because
Yeah.
I do have children. I do have two little beings that, I may not be responsible for them as their parent, but I'm their family. Like, they
Mm.
have me forever. Whatever happens, if they can't talk to their mummy and daddy, they can talk to me. As they grow up, they've got me. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, so I think that has made it so much easier.
Yes.
Not, it's not perfect, and I think I would be a really good mum,
Yeah.
but that just hasn't happened, and I don't want to put my body through trying to make it happen in my late 40s. That feels crazy to me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it
but
just feels exhausting, doesn't it? The thought
yeah,
of that.
yeah. It's, if it hasn't happened, then that's the way it's meant to be. I'm sure I was mummy in another lifetime, and I will be in a future one. But for this one right now, I'm an auntie, and I'm a cat mummy.
Yes.
I'll take that. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's just as good.
And so, have you ever felt, any sense of judgment from others? Do you ever receive any of that inappropriate questioning, and that often a woman who is not visibly like with a child can face, especially like when you're in your 30s and 40s? I mean, I know that there can be variances as you progress, like as you get increasingly older around that, but what's been your experience of that with other people, especially those who don't know you necessarily?
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad, luckily, but maybe that's just the circles I move in. The biggest assumption I get is people calling me Mrs. actually, and that winds me up more. Everyone,
Yes.
whenever someone rings cold calling or some stupid thing like that, they assume I'm Mrs. Conway, and that really pisses me off. But no, the mother thing hasn't been as bad. I mean, the only thing that stands out in my mind, so it shows that there's not much else, was after my sister had my second nephew. I remember being at the house. One of the first times the health visitor came round, or the midwife, or whatever they're called, to check in, weigh him, see how it's all going, see how the breastfeeding's going. And he was a really cute baby. My sister gives birth to good babies. So we're cooing over him, and oh my gosh, the cuteness. And I remember the midwife looking at me and saying, "Oh, does this make you want one?" And I just had to say to her, "Do you know what, love? I'd love one, but I'm 40, whatever I was at the time." And I'm like, it's not really on the cards. So, and I understand where the assumption came from. I understand also that I don't particularly look my age, so she probably thought I was a bit younger. But her entire world, this woman, is babies and giving birth and supporting pregnant women. So I get it, totally get it. And I was there cooing over the baby as well. But that tiny little assumption was quite hurtful,
Yeah.
because for all she knows, I've been through 10 rounds of IVF. You just don't know what's going on with someone. So I totally understand that was her world and it wasn't a problem. But, it's kind of death by a million tiny little assumptions like that. That's what it can feel like. And again, with assuming I'm Mrs., it's like, no, everyone, I haven't followed the traditional path that we're all, in quotes, supposed to follow. I'm not married. I don't have children. I'm 45 and I live on my own. I haven't done what you're supposed to do, but I'm still happy and that's okay. So I don't face it very often, but when I do, yes, it's really irritating.
It
And
really can grate, can't
well,
it?
it just makes me want to rebel even more, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't consciously choose to be in this position, but now I'm here, I kind of want to shout about it a bit more. And it's like, it's okay to not do what you're supposed to do. It just feels like we're raising humans to kind of work in the factory still. You go to school, you pass I mean, the way they teach children at school is ridiculous. The way you got to pass certain exams is ridiculous. It's not teaching you to survive your life. It's just teaching you to go work in the factory, and we're still in that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to get married. You're supposed to be straight. Can't be any different than that. Oh, you're supposed to fall in love and get married, and then you're supposed to buy a house. And I mean, I've never owned a house even. I mean, how dysfunctional am I? Apparently, and
well,
yet
I think
I've done
that's
all these other
increasingly
things.
common, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, maybe, but I don't know. In Little England, it's not. I still live here, well, as you do now. So,
Yeah. And you just reminded me actually when you were talking about, the midwife commenting. I remember I had a miscarriage and I was in the hospital to have like a D&C, and just as I'm about to go into the operating theatre, the nurse on the ward I was in said to me, "Oh, when was your due date, and when would the baby have been, expected?" And she was asking me, and she said, "Okay, so when we get to November and when you get to that weekend when that child was born, as you look around at other pregnant women, you'll think that should have been me. It's not fair." And I just thought, wow, I can't believe you feel that that's appropriate to say. And I just looked at her and I said, no, I won't. I'll never feel like that, because I'd never deprive somebody else of their experience and their child. That's got nothing to do with me, like the experience they're having. And I said, I take it you've had miscarriages. And she said, yeah, I have. And then she launched into a story about that. I mean, she'd had children since, but I was just really gobsmacked at the lack of sensitivity. I thought, you don't know anything about me. You don't know my background. For all you know, I could have been trying for 10 years. As it happened, it was, that was not the situation. But I just thought, wow, it's astonishing how when people have not resolved their own emotions and feelings, it can come out like verbal diarrhea at really inopportune moments to other people.
But that's the world we live in. I mean, that's everyone.
I mean, so
it's so rare that people sort their shit out. Which is why you and I do the work we do, is to help. I think anything emotional is scary. And everyone's walking around screwing up their relationships because talking about stuff is scary. And I mean, I could rant actually for hours about this, how the majority, and also we're taught this, are living really unconsciously. It's like, no, I'm going to watch TV and numb out. I'm going to drink alcohol to numb out. All of these behaviors that we've created to help us not be present in our life. We create these amazing little things we hold in our hands, these incredible phones. And yet now everyone, apart from me, because I refuse to, is glued to them. But these stupid little devices are dinging and pinging and trying to get your attention just to take you away from your actual life. And as humans, we have such an addictive tendency. Even me, I mean, I'm trying to cut down on sugar a bit. It's not helping me sleep and all of these things. It's like, oh my God, my body's working against me because it wants the sugar. I mean, I don't drink anymore, but back in my 20s, I necked enough bottles of wine, because it felt good. And I just wasn't conscious. I wasn't present to my life. And of course, now I am. I want everyone to catch up. Hey, don't say that to my friend Michelle when she's having this operation. I wish everyone could wake up
Yeah.
uh, a bit quicker, which is why I am doing the work I do, because I want to help. I want to help people wake up. I want to help them be present to their lives. Because,
Absolutely. It's like we're in this age of hyper connectivity to technology, and yet it seems that people are increasingly disconnected from themselves, from the planet, from
yeah,
nature. And I mean, I had a week off Facebook the first week of April, and I had such a productive week.
yeah,
And I felt so much better in myself. I'd actually originally been thinking I was going to have a month off, and then I got sucked back in by a million messages and different things. But I've made a conscious choice that I'm just going to do that more frequently, because the value to my own sense of well-being and feeling less scattered or distracted is just immeasurable, really is immeasurable. And like you, I just feel that, so often people are just not present. And even when you're out in company, often people are, I mean, constantly, because now I'm in Cornwall, I'm seeing all these beautiful places. I cannot tell you the amount of times, and it happened on the weekend again, where we'll go for a walk. We're at this amazing spot where there's a bench in a beautiful lookout, and there will be people sat there. They are not looking at the view, they are all sat there looking down at the phones. And I'm just constantly like, laugh and think, you're in this like incredible spot, like there's no one else here, and you're looking at Facebook on your phone. You're not even looking or aware of what's around you. It's incredible.
yeah. No, it's bananas. Well, I mean, I could delete Facebook tomorrow and I wouldn't miss it, because I don't use it in the usual way. I
Mm,
don't ever look at notifications. I certainly don't get anything pinged or emailed at me. I only ever look at my page to see
yeah.
if I need to respond to something, because I mainly use it for work. So, like, I
Yeah,
never look
because
at the
you've got your
homepage.
groups
And
on there. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
it's
really
just for work.
useful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to. I don't. It's not a thing to connect with real life friends. I do that in other ways.
Yeah.
Uh, but I spent time with some friends last year, and one of my cherished and adored friends had notifications pinging on her phone.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I mean, in the end, I was just taking the mickey out of her, going, "Oh my gosh, what could it be that your phone has made a noise? And what's it going to be?" And it was just someone had liked something on Instagram, or something utterly pointless. My phone is always on silent, so if it
Yeah.
rings, it vibrates. So if I'm not within earshot of hearing the vibration, then I won't hear it, and I'm cool with that, because I don't particularly enjoy being on the phone. The only notifications I get are actual text messages from people I like and adore who send me messages, and also messages from dating apps, because I want to reply in a timely thing. So that's the only notifications I get. Nothing from Instagram or Facebook, or I don't need to know if someone likes the picture. That's not useful. That's not helpful. Um, but I did take the mickey out of my friend, because I'm like, why is your phone making noises? Why? Why?
Yeah. Why
We're
can't you just be
talking.
here present with us in the
Yeah,
moment?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I said it with love, but it just made me realise, oh my God, it's like when you're in a train. And for me, sitting on a train is just, I've got an hour and a half to
Yeah, to
just
read a
sit.
book or just sit
Yeah.
here.
I can't do anything. I can't be on my computer. I'm just going to sit here. And you'll just know that within seconds, bing, billy boop, bing, boop, boop, some idiot is their phone is binging away at them. And it's all I can hear. And
Yeah.
and I always just want to get up and go, "Hi, can you put your phone on silent, please?" Oh my God, why does everyone in this carriage need to know that you got a text message or a whatever you got? I don't know. It makes me a bit stabby.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
I
and
totally agree. I totally agree.
is
I
it?
can't stand when people start having these really personal conversations at the top of their voice on their phone, and they're sat next to you, and then they continue on for about an hour.
No,
And you're like,
I
you're
know.
in a public, you're not in a room on your own, love.
Yeah, I know.
You're
Just
talking
no
about really
consideration.
personal stuff. Anyway, it's mind boggling. Yeah, I totally agree. It drives me completely demented. But so it's interesting. There are so many pros and cons to having this sort of amazing technology that we're subjected to. And you talked about dating apps, and I wanted to ask you, because I know we've talked about this briefly offline before, but have you noticed in terms of like, dating in your 30s, dating in your 40s, with the subject of do you want children, how have you noticed any differences in how that's addressed? Like when you're talking about with guys, is it something that comes up like, in the first lot of questions or meetings, or is it something that you avoid talking about, or what do you notice about that?
I don't bring it up because I know that I can't / don't want to have kids. So I don't bring it up. It depends where you meet them.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about online dating, so you've either got web-based or websites, which might have apps attached to them, or you have just apps. So for example, OkCupid and Guardian Soulmates, those are two websites that I'm on. And both of them give you the option to say whether you have kids and whether or not you want them or don't want them. So that's really useful information to see straight off. And I've noticed that on Guardian Soulmates, which you have to pay to use, and you can imagine it's attached to the Guardian newspaper, lovely left-wing newspaper, so you can imagine the kind of guys that are on there. I see that the majority of guys in their 40s say that they want kids if they haven't got them. And when you look at the ages that they're searching in, they're always looking for someone at least 5 to 10 years younger than them. So they're not interested in someone like me because you can see if they want kids, they're fishing in the 30-something pool.
Yeah.
So they can meet a woman who's fertile, they can have a relationship for a few years and then maybe have kids. So I mean, I'm noticing this 99% of the time. That's what these guys are doing. So if someone in their 40s writes to me, they either have stated they don't want kids or they already have them.
Yeah.
But I never hear from anyone who looks like he wants kids. So that's good information to have, and also quite predictable, really.
Yes.
I noticed that most blokes, at least here, and I'm sure it's global, are looking for someone younger than them. And yet. That might be sexy when you're a 30-year-old woman and some 40-year-old bloke writes to you, but actually when you're 45, I don't want someone in his late 50s. That's not going to work for me. So I want someone, same age would be nice, or a bit younger even. So yeah, your parameters of what you're looking for definitely shift. As you get older.
That's the downside, isn't it, sometimes of some of the online stuff? Because if you met somebody in real life just by chance, like whether it was through friends or a function or something that you were at, and they were however old they were, that wouldn't be the first thing you would be thinking of. If you met somebody and you just struck up a conversation, you met them naturally without that kind of date pressure or, outside of the parameters of a dating app, for example, they might not think about the fact that, oh, actually, she's not a 35-year-old. She's actually lovely and we've got a great connection going here. So I feel like often people are really missing out by putting those like age limitations on there. But of course, they're naturally going to do that when it's just they've got to click these boxes and put in an ideal scenario, for themselves. Like, so it's a shame.
Got to. Yeah, you have to put the filters in to search for what you're looking for. Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather meet someone offline, but I mean, God, it's actually quite tricky these days. And part of it is because I work from home.
Yes.
So I'm not out and about meeting someone all the time. I'm not working in an office.
Yeah.
I'm not at college anymore. So none of my friends have any single friends they want me to meet. I mean, across the board. Or if they do, they're like, oh yeah, but you won't like him, or oh, he's not, he's a grown-up boy, blah blah blah, whatever the reason is. So yeah, it'd be nice to meet someone in a coffee shop, but it just doesn't happen in London. Everyone's far too busy.
Yes.
You just don't meet people like that. So of course you go online. Of course you go onto Tinder or whatever, because it's convenient. And also, hopefully the majority of people on there are genuinely single and looking for someone. Some of them are looking for extramarital affairs, where you can usually tell who those ones are.
Yeah.
And you kind of filter through. But yeah, obviously age is part of your search, and it's the same for me. If I met someone in his 50s in real life, but I didn't know how old he was and we got on really well, that would be different.
Yeah.
But when I'm punching in my numbers of who I'm searching for, 49 is my limit, so I'm already limiting myself even there. But it's just what you do. You have to. You got to put some numbers in.
Yeah, you can't just leave it completely open.
You can't, because you got, if there's loads of people on the site, you have to work your way through them. What I have noticed in actually meeting guys in real life is quite a lot of the time they don't put their real age. on
Yes, of
the side.
course,
And
that's right.
I'm
Yeah.
sure women do that as well. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, but if I've done it, I might do a couple of years less just to kind of get me under some perceived, limit that, oh, anyone over 45, they're not going to look. But if I put like 43, I might just, get in under the bar. But I went on a date with someone recently. He put his age as 41. Turned out he was 48. I'm like, oh, come on.
Wow,
That's a
gosh.
big jump, don't be silly. Oh, went on a date with another guy last year. He said 41. He was actually 51. Again, I'm like, come on, mate. That's really rubbish.
Yeah.
Another guy I went on a date with had said, oh, I think I met him on Tinder. So there was no mention of kids. And I actually really appreciate when someone puts in their profile, I'm a dad to two gorgeous kids, or
Yeah.
I've got a lovely 6-year-old, or I'm a proud daddy, or that makes you think, well, you're a decent person because you're acknowledging your children and you're saying something cute about them.
Yeah.
That's really nice. That feels good. I don't necessarily want to be with someone who already has children, but if I meet my right person and they have, then that's obviously the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, went on a date. The guy who was 48 instead of 41, he also has 2 kids. I'm like, mate, just tell me up front. That came out
Yes.
an hour into conversation, an hour into face-to-face talking. He then mentions he's got twins. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, it wasn't a deal breaker, but equally, I hated that he just wasn't upfront about it.
Yeah,
So
it's a pretty big thing to not
it's a big
bother.
thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not mentioning it because you think it puts people off, well, actually, what puts me off is the fact that you don't mention it,
Well,
not the
that's
fact that you have
right.
kids. So, but the thing is, there are no. I mean, I was going to say there's no rule books for this. There's a heck of a lot of books and websites about how to meet your person and how to date, but I think most of them are being read and looked at by women and not a lot of blokes.
Yeah, that is so
The guys
true.
are sort of cluelessly going online and talking about, I don't do drama. I want someone sane, no trout pouts, blah, blah, blah. They're doing a big long list of all the things they don't want. I'm like, oh, well, that's not selling it. Don't be
No.
negative. Oh, anyway, but they're probably not my guys, and that's okay. They are eliminating themselves out of
Well,
the
they
out of
are, that's
the
right. Absolutely. Without even realizing that they're
yeah,
doing it. You just,
yeah.
the lack of honesty and transparency is a big one.
Well, it's just silly, but I get it. I mean, I do understand. And actually, the interesting thing about on and off dating for the last 6 years or so is that I actually have quite a lot of compassion
Yes.
generally, but especially for these clueless guys. Because, I mean, I think about blokes in my life, like my brother-in-law, my stepbrother, and if I imagine them putting a profile online on how they'd do it, they'd have a few pictures of them at the pub, because that's the
Yeah.
only time someone took a picture. If they took a selfie, yeah, they probably would be in their car, which is what all the blokes seem to share, is a selfie in the car. I get it. I mean, what would they write? I like going out, I like staying in, which is what all the blokes write. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I see it. I understand it. I mean, my stepbrother, in fact, did create a profile on OkCupid, and he asked me to help him, which was really sweet. So I sort of gave him some pointers, helped him write it. And when he was looking for photos, he emailed my mum and said, have you got any pictures of me from like the last barbecue? Because he didn't have any. And so I get it. I can see it. I've been doing it for long enough. My eyes are very wide open to what's going on. So I try not to be like this fury of judgment
Yes.
when I'm on Tinder. But yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, to get back to the question, I really appreciate it when blokes talk about their kids. That's good. I want to know. I want that piece of information. I want to see that they're a nice daddy. That's cool. However things have worked out with the mother of the children. I personally don't lead with, do you want kids? Because that's not my
Yes.
priority now.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of women probably do, but that is a priority for them. And that's something you do have to talk about.
Yeah.
Like I said about the guys on Guardian Soulmates in their 40s who are fishing in the much younger pool, because it's right there out in the open on their profile that they want children, they have ticked that with a yes. Then, I mean, I'm sure the women in their 30s who have also ticked yes, I want kids, it's already there. It's already established that this is what we both want. So if they click and they get on, hopefully, it's going to come up, because it just does. I
Yeah.
think when men know they want kids, they're actually quite motivated to make it happen. When they're more ambivalent, when they just want something casual, they just want sex, or whatever it is, nothing too serious, then, you kind of get the feeling for that too. So when they actively want children, they do something about it. So
Yeah.
for your listeners out there who want kids, get onto Guardian Soulmates, because apparently that's where all the blokes are who want a family. You have your pick.
And hopefully they can string a sentence together and say a bit more than, yeah, I like going to the pub, and I like, yeah.
Actually, yes, it's they can string a sentence together. Guardian Soulmates is quite good for that. All the messages I've had there have been actual, like, short paragraphs, not just, hey, how are you? All right, how are you, gorgeous? None of that crap. It's like proper sentences, actual short paragraphs referring to something I said in my profile. I'm quite impressed. So yeah, much just they're a little bit more, what's
Yeah,
the word?
they've thought about
They're
it a
doing
bit
it a bit
more.
better. Yeah, a
Yeah,
bit more full, bit more in the game. So
which is
yeah, Guardian Summer.
encouraging.
Yeah, go for it, ladies. Your baby daddies are there.
So we could say that, right, so we could say that having children is one form of creative expression, but of course there are many ways we express ourselves. Now, you're already extremely creative. You're a successful writer, you're a photographer, you create e-courses. So are there any other ways that you would like to express yourself creatively? Are there any other, hobbies, activities that you're yet to explore that you've thought of, I'd love to try that. I've always wanted to do X, Y, and Z and see how I feel doing that?
No, actually, I can give you a very simple answer on that. No, because everything I'm already doing, I could class as a hobby.
Yeah.
I've turned my passions and hobbies into my work,
Yeah.
which I'm so grateful for. And everything I do is kind of about that.
Mm.
So I don't really take time off to do my hobbies because I'm
Yeah,
doing
you're
them all the
doing it.
time.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
it. I've been journaling since I was 11, and now I teach a journaling course, and there's always a journaling aspect in all my courses, actually. Photography, that's what I studied at art college, and now I've got books about photography done. So I'm living the dream. This is what I never knew I wanted, but it's what I've created. When I look at how I went to art college, did photography, I went back to university and did journalism, worked as a journalist for a few years. I've sort of woven those two things together in what I do now. So, I've taken art classes and I'm shit at painting. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting information. I didn't think I'd be good at it, but I kind of hoped I'd like really get into it.
Yeah.
And I went all the way to Italy to a Squam art workshops run by a friend of mine. They did a retreat in Italy, and I went along and did a week's painting and was just rubbish at it. It just wasn't flowing. And it was after I got through the frustration of that and the disappointment, it was this amazing epiphany of, oh my God, I don't have to be good at everything.
Yeah.
Wow, thank God. It was actually really quite nice to see and acknowledge and understand.
We seem to have quite a narrow perception of what creativity means. And I think, like, exactly what you've just said, like, I cannot draw at all. I used to love messing around with paint, but I couldn't reproduce anything or paint anything. It's more, I like doing stuff abstract in an abstract way.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that can like reproduce something. I can just about draw a stick figure. But I think often people will take an experience like that, think I can't draw, and then they go, therefore that means I'm not creative because I can't draw. Whereas in actual fact, it doesn't mean that at all. We're creative just by the nature of being alive, aren't we? Everything we do is an aspect of self-expression. So I feel like it's really important that we're not be afraid of not being, good in inverted commas at something purely just trying things just out of curiosity.
Well, just do it for the joy of doing it. The problem is we're taught at school that you're going to get graded on it. It's got to be good or bad or just not worth doing. And it's like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
Just do it for the joy. Do it for the discovery. Figure out who you are. All of those things. it's all creative.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to involve paint or a camera or a notebook. Although obviously those two things are delicious and gorgeous and should definitely be explored. But no, so at the moment I'm looking for a new home, which is causing me a huge amount of stress and anxiety. But I'm, in amongst all the stress and anxiety is a tiny, tiny little acorn that I know is going to grow when I finally find the four walls I'm going to live in, because I'm really excited that, if I'm going to move to a house which is going to be a little bit bigger than where I am now, I'm going to need to get some new furniture. And how delicious is that I'm finally going to get an armchair that I'd really like to get. And I'm thinking about a kind of leather secondhand. Oh, what am I going to get? And this acorn is the deliciousness of furnishing my new home and bringing everything together and finding new furniture to go with what I've already got. And, just that is such a delicious creative project that I can't wait to do. And because that's in there, it's helping me get through the stress and anxiety, because I know that at the end of this short path that I have to walk for the next few months, it's going to be me fluffing my new home, basically. I'm going to make it look lovely, because my environment is so important to me. I mean, I work from home anyway, so of course I want to look at nice things. And it's not about having the best things or things looking perfect, but it's about everything. I mean, if you come to my house now, everything around me is such an expression of who I am, because it just is. I mean, it's just what I do. So that's creative. How the things you put around you, how you do your garden, or how you make your cottage pie, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
or even just problem solving, thinking outside of the box, creative solution finding.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all good stuff. It's all about being human. So yeah, I mean, this question, which I think was at the beginning of what you were saying, of we're not a mother, but we still do mothering things, or we can do creative things. I have a slight problem with that sometimes, because I feel like some of the conversation out there about not being a mother is that you still have to have the consolation of something else that feels as important.
Yes.
Or, I'm not a mother, but, I still have the books I've written or my work, and that's just as important. And yes, that's true. But also, for some reason, that still really winds me up. I don't know. And it's not that I'm sitting here in pieces that I'm not going to have children. I know that it's going to be an ongoing thing I will think about probably for decades, I reckon. Because every time my nephews reach a new stage, like when Noah turns 11 and goes to the big school, when he finishes school at 18, when he's at college, hopefully, or not, whatever he's doing, if he gets married or not, or, whatever his life journey is, I'm gonna know that I don't have a child doing that, And even though I celebrate being an aunt and all of that, obviously, I also contained within that and held within that is the knowing that I don't have that. And so, I mean, this is part of why I'd rather fall in love with someone that doesn't have children, because then we're both on the same page, and I will never have to have the conversation with him that starts, but it's okay for you. You've already had your kids. I never want to have that exchange with the person I love. It's okay for you. You've got your kids. You can't understand. Or for him to say it back to me, but you don't understand the responsibility. Like, I just don't want us to ever have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So I know that when I hit 50 in 5 years, I'm going to think about it. I know that when I hit 60, I mean, I hope that my sister and I talk about this all the time. Like, we're going to end up being two old biddies in a nursing home, me and her, because our husbands will probably be dead, and it'll be me and my sister. And when we're ready, we're going to do a Thelma and Louise and just drive off a cliff. Like, we're like, that's how we're going to do it, because we know that it will end up being us, and we'll be in the nursing home, and hopefully Noah and Sammy and their partners, and maybe kids or not, will come and visit us. Like, we talk about this stuff, but obviously in jest, but we mean it. This is this is how we see it playing out. So, and it will be enough that Noah and Sammy will come. But I know, I actually feel emotional talking about it. I know that there will still be a little piece of me that acknowledges what I didn't have.
Yeah, of course. And that experience I've been thinking about this recently, about it moves on to that next stage of knowing that you're not going to have grandchildren, and I know that that's something that my mum finds really hard, in that me not having had children. because she really wanted that for me. And, it was the subject of many discussions. And I even remember my grandmother, not long before she passed away, talking about the fact to me and one of my cousins about, you know, um, us not giving her great grandchildren, even though, my
Yeah,
cousin's gone on and she's had children now. But I just remember thinking, wow, it's just something that is so ingrained in our society and culture. And yeah, I think there's always going to be reflections on this at different times,
yeah,
and different ages, as we go through, and that we become more reflective. And maybe then when you know that you've got most of, the majority of your life behind you rather than in front of you. I mean, we're not at that point yet, but I suppose we're at that midway point. You never really know.
yeah,
So I think it does bring up a lot of reflection, especially when women are going through like that menopausal time, and then realizing that, that is completely 100% gone as any possibility. I mean, I know that we have a certain, it's often a massive thing in the news when people are having things later. I mean, I don't know if you saw recently, they're talking about how, Daniel Craig and his wife, Rachel Weisz, expecting their first child together. She's 48, he's 50, whatever he is, all that. And I thought, again, another, story in the media that makes it seem like this is a completely normalized thing when actually it's a minute percentage and you don't know what their circumstances were. But again, it's just this whole celebrity baby thing that's totally normalized when it's actually quite rare and unusual.
well, that sort of situation is really rare. And also, they probably had a lot of assistance, and they will also have a lot of assistance going forward. They'll probably have an army of nannies. They're
Yeah.
both working so much, so that's not normal. That's not
No,
normal,
that's
regular
right.
people. So but again, it's the glorification of motherhood, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Which can be quite tiring. And also, I hate how the tabloids, you're either flaunting your body or you're a mother. Like that seems to be the two stereotypes of women that I see online. So often it's like you're a mother, or you're flaunting your body, you're a floozy, or there's no other incarnations of women that I see, or representations rather.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, but I don't fit either of those now. So what am I, completely obsolete?
It's a growing demographic, it really is. And in the last 10 years, the number of women over the age of 40 without children has doubled, and that is only going to increase. I remember looking at some figures recently about Australia, and the prediction there is that by 2030, there will be more family groups without children than with them. And I thought, well, that's fascinating.
Do you know what though? I think it's okay
Yeah,
that we're doing that, because surely the planet is really massively overpopulated.
that's right. In other
So
areas,
maybe
definitely.
it's okay. I mean, I was looking at someone online the other day, and she's got two kids. She's talked about how hard it is online, social media, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then, but she's like, but we're having another baby, because her plan and dream is to have three children, because that's what she wants. And I couldn't help and I support any woman's choice to do whatever she wants. Let's just establish that. But I still just thought, yeah, but why three? I mean, I've always thought, I don't. If I had children, I'd maximum two, because I'm like, if the zombie apocalypse happens, I can only carry one under each arm. So what's going to happen to the third one is going to get eaten by the zombies. Like, that is how I measure it. So I just think, why would you have more children than you can carry? I don't know. That my stupid thought was that. I just thought, yeah, but why more? Why do you need so many? I don't really understand. So I don't know. Maybe that's because I'm not in the slipstream of I'm creating a family. What does that family shape look like?
Yeah,
There's so many things that we can't possibly cover in this conversation, and that I
yeah,
have no experience of.
yeah,
But I do remember what it felt like to be trying for a baby for a whole year. I was completely obsessed with it. I did the whole thing. I'd been to the doctor, blood test, checking it all out, lying with my legs in the air, trying to get that sperm inside. I did the whole thing for a year and had 12 periods that were very upsetting because I wasn't pregnant. And
yeah,
actually, if we rewind by another 10 years, I had a termination when I was 21 with the same person. So at the
Yeah.
beginning of the relationship, we were at college and I got pregnant and we didn't keep the baby. And then 10 years later, we tried to have a baby. And what's interesting about both of those is I have never regretted either experiences.
Yeah.
When I was 21, I wasn't meant to have a baby, and I have never regretted it. And it was the right thing to do. And even my friend at the time, she got pregnant as well. She had the baby. She now has I presume, 23, 24-year-old. I mean, amazing. And I think, my God, that could have been me.
Yeah.
But I knew
that it was the right thing to do at the time.
And so I'm much more interested in people having babies and families consciously.
Yes.
Like, let it be a decision because you're ready and you can bring up those kids and you know what you're doing and you're in the right place to do it. And that's brilliant. Don't just get pregnant because you think it'll, in quotes, fix your relationship, because obviously it won't. It will tear you apart.
Or because all your friends are having one, which is, we reach those periods, don't we? Especially when you're in your 30s, like early to middle 30s, it seems like everyone is suddenly pregnant around you. So I can totally, so I totally can see how people can get swept up in that, especially if they haven't really examined very deeply whether that's
you're
what
living
they want.
unconsciously. If you're living unconsciously, you get swept up and do what everyone else is doing. I mean, I remember being in my late 20s and a friend of mine was obsessed with getting married to her boyfriend at the time, because she wanted to have a baby before she was 30, because that's what her mum did. And that was absolutely what she had to do. And she achieved that. She got married to her boyfriend. They had a baby and they broke up like 5 years later. He was actually really abusive. She's now a single mum. Obviously nothing wrong with that, but I see her occasional posts on Facebook about how hard it is and yada, yada, it just goes on. And I just think, well, because you didn't, I don't know. I hate to sound really judgy, and I hope I don't come across like that. But maybe it's just been older now and looking back with the very rose-tinted hindsight and just looking at it thinking, wow, but you didn't think about why you wanted that, or if you were ready for that. You just went with this guy who was like your current boyfriend. And I don't know, I feel sad that I won't be a mum. I do still feel that sadness. I'm not super resolved and, oh, well,
I've got it all sorted, 100% clear. Yeah.
I'm an auntie and I've got my work and everything's fine. No, I still feel sad about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not pursuing it because I actually am so incredibly, probably too self-aware that I know I don't want to do it on my own right now. I know I'm too old. I know I'm too tired. And I'm just coming to a place of acceptance. And within that acceptance, I can also be sad.
Yeah,
and that's
of course.
Okay. And going forward, it's something I'm going to keep looking at it. And I think that's maybe the key, is just keep your awareness about how you feel about it. And if your circumstances change, great. And if not, great. It's all good. It's what it's all about. Life is just this big classroom and we're all trying to figure out what book should we read to get it right. And we don't always, but I think even if we don't get it right, we still get it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's so multifaceted. And like you say, a whole myriad of feelings and thoughts can coexist at the same time. It's all part of the joy of being human, isn't it?
Yeah. I just want to walk my path as truthfully as I can, really. And my path looks different from other people's most of the time. I think it always has, actually. Up till about 30, I was doing what was expected and what everyone else was doing. And then it all just kind of went to shit. But that's been the most incredible blessing of my entire life. So from there, I could then find out who I really was and just kind of live that every day. And it's pretty messy and definitely not perfect. But thank God, because I think as soon as you try and make it perfect, it can only fall apart. There is no perfect. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be.
Life is messy, isn't it? We're all, messy and flawed. We never know. Life's always full of surprises. We never know where we're going to be ending up.
Exactly. It's creation and destruction.
Yeah.
We bleed and then we don't. And then we just stop bleeding anyway. But then something else happens. We're constantly changing.
Yeah.
and life is constantly changing, and that's incredible, really. I mean, I'm just so grateful to still be here.
Yeah.
I've had periods in my life when I really didn't want to be, but I stuck it out, and things did improve. So not having kids, it's not the end of the world. And do you remember that film with Gwyneth Paltrow, Sliding Doors?
Yes. Yeah. Great film.
Sometimes I feel like I'm living that,
Yeah.
because I can so clearly see what could have been. And maybe it's
Yes.
because I see it reflected in my sister's experience, and I see my mum with her grandchildren, and how that's been amazing for her. And and when I talk with my mum on the phone, we usually just talk about the boys, because we're just these doting auntie and granny, and all of that stuff. And I can see this parallel life that I could have had. And then I also see, obviously, in my own life that I'm actually walking. And it's so fascinating to have that awareness of both, I suppose. It's not that I can only see the way ahead. I can kind of see it all. And that's maybe the beauty of being older, is I've just got more layers behind me. I've just got more years behind me. I'm just a bit more aware, and I'm so grateful for that. I wouldn't want to be my 30-year-old self again. I wouldn't want to be my
God, no.
21-year-old self again. It's like, I'm okay being here.
Yeah.
And this is the youngest I'll ever be right now. I've got to make the most of it. But it could be worse. It really could be worse. So
Yeah, so true.
I'm not living my consolation prize that I
No.
have from having kids. I'm just sort of trying to make my life as truthful and juicy and honest as I can be, really. So,
And creating that in every moment, and it's all part of the magical mystery tour that we're all on, let's face it. I mean,
well, actually, I can tell you one consolation prize, if we're going to get really superficial about it. And it's not about, I've got my own time and blah, blah, I can do all these things because I don't have kids. No, I don't give a toss about that stuff. But what I do look forward to hopefully experiencing is creating a relationship with a guy. When I find him, when I find one of these guys that I could be with, when I find one that fits, is having the time and energy to devote to our relationship. I really look forward to that, because we won't have the school run and the tiredness and the responsibility. Yes, we won't have all of the joy that comes from having our own children together. Hopefully he's an uncle like me and gets it. But we will have time to devote to our relationship. And that feels important to me, because
yes.
that connection feels important to me. I really want that. So that will be, in quotes, a consolation prize to not having children, is that I'll have more time to devote to my relationship and to what we're learning together. And maybe I can bring that to the world in my work that I do as well. So I look forward to that. But it's not instead of having kids. It's just
It's just different.
It'll be my experience. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that'll be lovely. And I hope that everything that I am learning and sharing supports women. My audience is mainly made up of women, and most of them are mums. So I hope that I can help support them as well, because they're doing the hard work.
Yeah.
Bringing up kids is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
I see it every day with friends and with my sister. So I hope I can contribute in some way. And I know that I don't have to be a mother myself to get it. I'm empathic enough to understand and to see and have compassion. So we're all doing our bit,
Exactly, in different ways.
Of experience. I think if we were all doing the same thing, we'd never learn anything. So there needs to be different flavors, I think, and I'm just living a different flavor. So.
Absolutely. And on that note, can you share with us, Susannah, the best place for people to find you and more about your work and your fabulous books and courses?
Oh, you're so kind. Just at my website, susannahconway.com. All the courses are there. Links to the books are there. Links to my social media. I'm not on Facebook a lot, but I do hang out on Instagram quite a lot. And again, same name, Susannah Conway, over on Instagram. So yeah, that's where I hang out. And I send out fortnightly, I call them love letters. It's basically my newsletter mailing list. But I'm not really blogging anymore at the moment, but I share all the dirt and all my secrets and all the stuff in my fortnightly emails that go out. So if you want to get to know me, sign up for those.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for your time today. I could talk to you all day on all these topics.
We've barely scratched the surface.
I know.
Let's do it again when I have a new insight.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thanks so
darling.
much. That's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you for listening to Unclassified Woman. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. For information on events and services, connect with Michelle at michellemariemcgrath.com.